When does a retirement dream turn to ash? It happens when you trust the wrong people. What do you do when those people share your last name, your memories, your blood? We put their names on our accounts. To make things easier, they said. It was the biggest mistake of our lives. They thought they had taken everything. His spirit, our future, our peace. But they didn't know I had one last secret. A final lesson to teach them about consequences. They had misjudged their mother. They mistook my love for weakness. And they forgot one thing about me. A mother always has one last weapon in her arsenal. You can't understand the depth of this devastation without understanding the simple life that made it so sweet. John and I weren't fancy people. He was a foreman at a local manufacturing plant for 40 years, saving his gas receipts and coming home smelling of oil and hard work. That 401k wasn't just a number. It was every 5 a.m. start, every overtime shift to pay for braces. I was a school secretary, clipping coupons and using loyalty cards, my modest pension a symbol of our brick-by-brick security. We raised Michael and Jessica in this same house, the one where we read them bedtime stories, kissed their scraped knees, and waved goodbye on their first day of school. We believed we'd instilled in them the same moral compass that guided us. Our dream wasn't a mansion or European tours. It was a small used RV, a map of the national parks, and the freedom to wake up together and decide if today's adventure was the Grand Canyon or just a quiet lake 2 towns over. The idea, the one that led to all this, came from Michael. He sat us down at our familiar kitchen table, the one still scarred from their childhood art projects. "Mom, Dad," he began, his tone oozing with care, "we need to talk about estate planning. It's just to make things easier down the road." He made it sound like an act of love. We didn't know about safer options like a power of attorney or a living trust. We just heard our son offering to help. So we signed the papers. The bank teller smiled. "It's so wonderful to see a family that plans ahead," she said. I felt a surge of pride. But trust is a fragile foundation. That signature wasn't a safety net. It was a complete and total surrender. And what we were about to learn would change everything. The unraveling began subtly with a phone call. It was Jessica, her voice tight with a manufactured panic. She and her husband had found their dream house, but were short on the down payment. "Mom, it's just a loan," she'd said. "You have all that money just sitting there. It's not like you're using it." Just sitting there. The word stung. That money was our future. It was John's 40 years of sweat. But my husband, always a soft touch for his little girl, caved. "Of course, Jessie girl. That's what it's for." We gave her $50,000. Michael, our brilliant financial advisor son, handled the transfer, calling it a sound investment in her future. A few weeks later, a credit card statement for Jessica arrived here by mistake. My heart told me to throw it away, but my gut, a tight, cold knot, wouldn't let me. I opened it. A $10,000 charge for a luxury resort in the Caribbean. I confronted her, my voice trembling. Her reaction wasn't shame, it was venom. "My God, Mom, you opened my mail? You're so paranoid. You always favored Michael. You never question him. For your information, Mark's parents gave us that trip." The lie was so smooth, so practiced, it silenced me. I chose a fragile peace over an ugly truth. But that wasn't the worst of it. The real alarm bell rang a few months later. I was online paying the electric bill and decided to check our retirement account. The balance wasn't down by 50,000. It was down by 100,000. I scrolled frantically and found it. Another $50,000 transfer to an unknown account. I called Michael, my hand shaking. "Oh, that," he said, his voice a little too casual. "Dad and I talked about that. We decided to move some funds into a higher yield investment. I'm protecting your nest egg." His words were meant to be reassuring, but they felt like stones dropping into a deep, dark well. John hadn't mentioned it. This is the man who discussed buying a new lawnmower with me for a week. The unease was no longer a whisper. It was a screaming siren. And what I found next made my blood run cold. That night, while John slept, I slipped into his small office. The financial statements from the last 6 months were gone. A cold dread crept up my spine as I sifted through junk mail and old receipts. Defeated, I sank into John's worn leather chair, and then I saw it. A single folded piece of paper peeking out from behind the printer. It was a transaction summary from a high-end brokerage in Michael's name. With trembling fingers, I unfolded it. 2 deposits were listed, one for $50,000 and another for $75,000. The dates matched the withdrawals from our accounts perfectly. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was theft. The next morning, I showed John. His face turned a pale ashen gray. "There must be an explanation, Sarah," he insisted weakly. "Michael wouldn't. He's our son." That Saturday, they came for dinner. I went into the front guest room, which overlooks the drive, and cracked the window. My heart pounded in my throat, my breath fogging the glass as I gripped the dusty curtains so hard my knuckles were white. Their voices drifted up, casual and utterly chilling. "Did you get the new transfer?" Jessica asked. "Yeah, another 25 grand, Michael replied. "Dad's pension direct deposit is easy to reroute. The man doesn't even know how to check his balance online." "Is he asking questions?" "Mom seems jumpy." "A little." I fed her that reallocation of assets line. She bought it. "She thinks I'm a Wall Street genius," he laughed, a short, sharp sound that cut me to the bone. "Good," Jessica said. "My new car payment is a killer, and Mark wants to book that ski trip to Aspen. Maybe I'll get that designer bag I wanted, too." "Don't worry," Michael whispered. And this is the part I will never forget. "There's still plenty left in the 401k to drain. By the time they figure it out, we'll have what we're owed. It's our inheritance. We're just getting it early. We earned it by being their kids. What we're owed." The entitlement was breathtaking. At dinner, I passed the potatoes and smiled, but all I could see were vultures. The pain was an ocean, but beneath it, a cold, hard, crystalline anger was stirring. They had started this war, but I was going to finish it. After they left, I sat John down and laid out everything. I repeated their words, making sure he heard every last one. It's our inheritance anyway. We're just getting an advance. The denial crumbled from his face, replaced by a look of such profound devastation it felt like a physical blow. He put his head in his hands, and his broad shoulders shook with silent, racking sobs. In the days that followed, he became a ghost. At night, he'd whisper, "Where did we go wrong, Sarah?" I'd find him with old photo albums, tracing their smiling faces. "My Mikey, my Jessie girl," he'd choke out, his tears dripping onto a picture of them on Santa's lap. I remember his first home run, the way she looked at her graduation. They loved us then. I know they did. The financial collapse was swift. The pension was gone. Late notices started arriving. At the grocery store, my face burned with shame as I had to count out coins for a loaf of bread. I told the pharmacist I'd pick up John's prescription next week, knowing I couldn't. I'd see a neighbor and force a smile, pretending everything was fine. "We have to call the police, John," I pleaded. "And say what?" he shot back, his voice raw. "That our children are thieves? That we raised monsters? I can't." His pride, that old-world sense of family honor, wouldn't allow it. To him, admitting this to the world was a greater failure than losing the money. His shame was a cage, trapping us both. But watching him grieve, my resolve hardened into steel. If he couldn't fight, I would fight for both of us. While John drowned in sorrow, my anger became my fuel. My first call was to a lawyer, Arthur Vance. I met him in his dusty, book-lined office. It smelled of old paper and something I hadn't felt in months. Justice. "Mrs. Miller," he said, his voice firm, "this isn't just a family squabble. This is a 5-alarm fire of felony fraud. The mistake they made, the mistake greedy people always make, was leaving a paper trail. Are you prepared for how ugly this will get?" "They already tore this family apart," I replied. "I'm just here to settle the damages." That's when I revealed my last secret. Years ago, my mother left me $30,000. "Sarah," she told me, placing the envelope in my hand, "a woman must always have her own soil to stand on. Never let anyone, not even the man you love most, take away your security. This is your rainy day money. I'd put it in a separate account under my maiden name. I just never imagined the storm would be my own children." That secret fund was now my war chest. I called a family meeting, telling them we needed to discuss selling the house. They arrived, their faces a mask of fake sympathy. I stood by the fireplace and laid documents on the coffee table one by one. The sound of the paper hitting the wood was the only sound in the room. "This," I said, my voice cold, "is a copy of the pension rerouting form with the forged signature. This is a forensic analysis tracing over $200,000 from our 401k directly into your accounts. And this," I said, placing a small digital recorder on the table, "is a recording of your conversation in the driveway." I let the silence hang, thick and unbearable. The grandfather clock in the hall ticked loudly, each second a hammer blow against their lies. Then I pressed play. Their own voices filled the room. The color drained from their faces. "This is illegal," Michael stammered. Arthur, who had been standing quietly by the door, stepped forward. "In this state, it only requires one-party consent. And your mother was a party to the conversation she was listening to from inside her own home. Everything here is admissible." "You have two options," I said. "Option 1, you sign this agreement to return every cent with interest. You will sell the new cars and liquidate whatever assets you need to. Option 2, Arthur files criminal charges for felony elder abuse and fraud tomorrow morning. The choice is yours." Their shock curdled into rage. "You would do that to us? Your own children?" Jessica shrieked, tears of fury, not remorse, streaming down her face. "You did this to yourselves," I replied. Michael turned to his father. "Dad, please." It was a misunderstanding. I watched my husband. Seeing them, spitting lies with no remorse, something inside him shifted. He slowly pushed himself up, standing straighter than I'd seen him in months. He looked at his son. "A misunderstanding, Michael?" he asked, his voice firm. "Did you misunderstand that your mother and I needed that money to live?" "Number. You understood perfectly. You just didn't care." He turned to me. "Do what you have to do, Sarah." They signed. In the months that followed, their lives unraveled. Michael was fired and had to sell his house. Jessica sold her new car and is drowning in debt. The calls we got were filled with venom, blaming me for ruining their lives. We severed all contact. There's no joy in this victory. We still had to sell our home, and the dream of the RV is gone forever. But John is slowly healing. The light is returning to his eyes. Last week, I found him in the garage, patiently fixing the old kitchen chair that had wobbled for years, a small, hopeful gesture that we were putting things back together. We lost the life we planned, and we lost the children we raised, but in the end, John and I found each other again. We survived. So how does this happen? It happens quietly. It starts not with malice, but with a blurring of lines disguised as love. It's a slow erosion of boundaries disguised as helping out. It happens when you assume that the love you gave your children is an unbreakable shield against their own greed. But it isn't. It is a trap that any loving parent can fall into. The bonds of family are meant to be our greatest strength, but sometimes they become our greatest vulnerability. If our story resonated with you, if you carry the silent weight of a similar betrayal, please know this: you are not alone. There is a sisterhood and a brotherhood of us who have faced this pain. Your story matters. Share it below if you feel comfortable, so that your voice can be a light for someone else walking in the dark. Learn from our mistakes. Never put your children's names directly on your bank accounts. Create a living trust or a power of attorney with a lawyer you trust. And never ever assume that love will protect you from greed. If you want to hear more stories about reclaiming your power, please subscribe. Watch this next for another gripping tale of retirement gone wrong, plus the lesson you can't afford to miss.